Hey Rowan, yesterday I told you about aardvark, which is the first word in many dictionaries. It's the canonical first word. Now for the canonical last word, and that word is Zymurgy, which is the process of fermentation. Fermentation is how we get beer, wine, and sauerkraut, and kimchi. So yesterday when I was at the grocery store, I was thinking, hey, let's make some more sauerkraut. So I got a cabbage, I brought it home, I started chopping it up. And all the while the word Zymurgy was going through my head because it's like, this is fermented cabbage, and fermentation is Zymurgy. So I was like, okay, I'll do a thing about Zymurgy. And it's like, tell Rowan about Zymurgy. It's like, I shouldn't really just start with the last word. I should go with the first word. So yesterday you got aardvark. Today you're getting Zymurgy, the canonical last word in the dictionary. It's spelled Zymurgy. So Z is the last letter of the alphabet. Y is the last vowel. So there are a few words that show up later, but there aren't many of them, and they're even weirder and rarer than Zymurgy. But this is a beer that I made, and the bottle of wine that I showed you is Lolly's favorite. It's something called Alpine Spice. It's very sweet. It's just like Lolly. Lolly's very sweet, and she likes the sweet wine. And both of those are made by the same type of yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Saccharomyces is Latin. It means sugar yeast, sugar fungus. And cerevisiae comes from the Latin word for beer. Now, beer and wine and bread are all made with the same type of yeast. And what that yeast does is it takes up little sugars and it converts them into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Now, the carbon dioxide is what makes beer fuzzy and makes bread rise. When you make wine, you let the carbon dioxide leave. Now, I make beer myself because it's kind of fun to do, and it allows me to play with it and say, hey, I made this. I make wine on occasion. My dad used to make wine. My grandfather used to make wine. My grandfather, as in my mother's father. So my dad told me several stories about him and Virgil getting together and making wine, and Virgil's pa, who hung up the drop light a couple videos ago, hung up the drop light, made the sun shine. Anyway, he used to make wine and got my dad into making it. And there were a couple of times where my dad went and made wine and it just made a big mess, because with the yeast, when they get going, they can really get going. And so it foams up a lot and just made a huge mess in the basement. My mom was like, ugh. But my dad cleaned it up. But anyway, Paul's grandmother, who you are named after, partially, once made sauerkraut like this, except she did it with red cabbage, which sounds kind of cool. But the problem is that the red cabbage has a lot more sugar in it. And she sealed the jars. And so when the yeast started going on the sugars in the red cabbage, they just went wild. And the jars exploded all over Paul's grandfather's gun room. So imagine the panic in the house when there were explosions coming out of the gun room. Well, that was kind of a mess, and the walls were pink. The walls were pink pretty much forever. But, so that is Zymurgy, the process of fermentation. It also applies to yogurt and a couple of other things, except yogurt is done with a bacteria called Lactobacillus bulgari. Lactobacillus, milk bacteria, Bulgari, Bulgaria. So it's founded Bulgaria, or discovered or named after Bulgaria, because yogurt is popular in Bulgaria because I don't know why. Different people eat different foods in different countries. In Bulgaria, for a long time, was a lot of yogurt. Anyway, that's Zymurgy. Have a great day.